Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala, thumma ma ba'd. To proceed, today inshallah we will have the station of al-Surur or Bliss, and we will start the book of al-Fara'id, Kitab al-Fara'id, the book of inheritance or the laws of inheritance. First, al-Imam al-Harawi rahimahullah ta'ala said in his book Manaazil As-Saa'ireen, Bab al-Surur, or the station of al-Surur, the chapter on Surur, Bliss. He started by saying, قال الله عز وجل قل بفضل الله وبرحمته فبذلك فليفرحوا قل بفضل الله وبرحمته فبذلك فليفرحوا. Allah the Almighty said, say in the bounty of Allah and in His mercy, in that let them rejoice. In the bounty of Allah and in His mercy, in that let them rejoice. And this ayah is in Surah An-Nur, Surah Yunus, I'm sorry. And the Shaykh said, وَالسُّرُورُ اسْمٌ لِاسْتِبْشَارٍ جَامِعٍ وَهُوَ أَصْفَى مِنَ الْفَرَحِ لِأَنَّ الْأَفْرَاحَ رُبَّمَا شَابَهَ الْأَحْزَانِ ولذلك نزل القرآن باسمه في أفراح الدنيا في مواضع وورد اسم السرور في الموضعين في القرآن في حال الآخرة. He says السرور or bliss is a name for complete cheerfulness, istibshar. It is purer than farah, which is joy, because farah may be mixed with some grief, and that is why the Quran mentioned farah in different occasions concerning the joy of this world. However, surur or bliss was mentioned in two occasions in the Quran in reference to the state of bliss in the hereafter. So the bottom line is that the Shaykh wants to say that the surur is greater, purer than farah, and the surur is basically a name for or denotes complete cheerfulness or istibshar. Istibshar comes from the same root as bushra, and bushra means glad tidings. Lahum al-bushra, theirs is the glad tiding or the glad tidings. So bushra is about feeling no worries about the future, feeling confident about the future. And that is when your farah is pure. Keep in mind that what the Shaykh, the distinction that the Shaykh makes here about surur and farah in terms of the Quranic usage of surur and farah is not completely accurate, because the surur and farah have been both mentioned in positive and negative context in the Quran. إنه كان في أهله مسرورا, that is negative context, not positive context in the Quran. So surur also was mentioned in the Quran in negative context. Farah was mentioned in both contexts, in negative context, in positive context. In this ayah that the Shaykh cited from Surah Yunus, positive. قل بفضل الله وبرحمته فبذلك فليفرحوا هو خير مما يجمعون. Say, in Allah's favor and in His mercy, let them rejoice. That is better than all they hoard or all they collect or all they gather. The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His favors. So both for surur and farah have been mentioned in positive and negative context in the Quran. So it is not as about semantics as much as it is about the implications and meanings here. They both, if the source of your surur and farah is good, and if the manifestation of that surur and farah is good, the source of surur and farah is fadlullahi wa rahmatuh, the bounties of Allah, His favors. And the bounties of Allah and His favors do not necessarily have to do about, your religious state. They could also be about the dunya. You could also be happy because Allah granted you with a good career or a good spouse or a good car or a good child. You could be happy because of Allah's favors in this dunya, and that would be completely valid, except that when you're happy because of that, you recognize the source. The source of the bounty, the source of the favor is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you will not say, La Qarun, إنما أوتيته على علم عندي. I have been given this because of knowledge that I have, because of my knowledge, because of my skill. I have all this wealth, Qarun said, I have all of this wealth because of my knowledge, because of my skill. So, I don't need to listen to you preaching to me about, gratefulness, gratitude to God, and basically not causing corruption on earth or any of that stuff, because my wealth and my thriving business is because of my skill and my knowledge. That would be certainly the condemnable farah or surur. When you don't recognize that the source of this is the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because whatever it is that you have, if you're intelligent, there were a lot more intelligent people that were unable to succeed. And they had miserable lives, and in terms of intelligence, they were much more intelligent than you are, and so on. So, بفضل الله وبرحمته, the source should be Allah's mercy and His favor, and you recognize that source, and you recognize that this is where it comes from. It does not come from your own excellence or good qualities. And then when you do, when you're happy, and it does not mean also that you don't recognize your strengths. We don't necessarily need to basically unlearn our strengths. I mean, if you have some strength, use it, but you have to understand that that strength itself comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and be grateful for that. Grateful to Him for that. It does not mean that you don't recognize your strengths. Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam said, "Ja'alni ala khaza'in al-ard, inni hafizun alim." Assign me to basically be in charge of the treasury, the house of treasury. Because I keep good count, and I have knowledge of this, alim, and I keep good count. So I am good at this. I can, I have the qualities, the skills that are needed for this job. So when you write your CV, that's fine. You say whatever strengths you mention, whatever strengths that you have. And also when you go to an interview and you sort of make yourself desirable, that is also fine, as long as you're not lying. But you recognize the source, and then the manifestation. The first is to recognize the source, and the second is the manifestation of this farah is not ashar and butter. Ashar and butter basically is when is when you reject the truth, and you feel arrogant, and you feel haughty, and basically inconsiderate of people, and you don't listen, and all of that stuff. So that's the ashar and the butter, rejecting the truth and being too happy. Too anything is not good, because excessiveness is not good. There is one thing that too much of it, you can't have too much of it. Faith, iman. It's an absolute ni'mah. There is no excessiveness in iman, because it's an absolute ni'mah. Anyway, so the idea here that the Shaykh wants to make is that there is condemnable and commendable types of farah and surur if you recognize the source and you manifest this farah and surur in a good way by being thankful, being grateful, and sharing with al-Khalq, Allah's creation as well. So you share whatever it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had favored you with people. And that would be the proper way of manifesting your farah, or your happiness, your rejoicing in the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you're rejoicing in the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala since you recognize that Allah is the source. You will have perpetual happiness, perpetual, uninterrupted, uncorrupted happiness. It is happiness that is not munaghas, that is not basically mixed with any impurities. If you don't, if you think that you're the source, your happiness will always be contingent, will always be mixed with worries at least. Because can anyone trust themselves that they will never get sick or they would never basically lose their wealth? Or you can really never have that much confidence in yourself, because you look at the people around you and you realize, if you have been around for some time and you have some experience about life, you will see the ups and downs of life, and you'll see how flip-flops on people all the time, and then you'll never have that much confidence. So your surur, your farah will always be mixed at least with worries. If you don't have anything to grieve over, like in the past and the present, like you really had such a wonderful life so far up until this point, everything has been perfect and working out very well for you. There is one thing that you will never be able to get rid of. That's worry and anxiety about the future, because you don't have guarantees. Istibshar, when he says ismun istibshar in jama', it is a name for complete cheerfulness. Cheerfulness also includes your confidence about the future and the lack of worries. That istibshar comes from your confidence in the future and your lack of worries, because you're counting on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your happiness. You're not counting on anything else. You're counting on your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the source of your happiness, and if your relationship with Him is the source of your happiness and He is the supplier of that happiness, then that supplier never runs out of rahmah and fadl and mercy and favors and graciousness. So the Shaykh then says, وَهُوَ فِي هَذَا الْبَابَ عَلَى ثَلَاثِ دَرَجَاتٍ, and in this respect it is of 3 levels. He said, الدرجة الأولى سرور ذوق ذهب بثلاثة أحزان. And we will go sort of quickly over the 3 different levels, because many of these concepts we have already discussed before in the previous stations. So we will go quickly over these concepts and to save some time for our next lecture, because we will have a lot to discuss, inshallah. He says that the first type of surur is the surur of taste. Usually he divides everything to 3 levels. The first level is the level of ilm, the second is the level of hal, and the third is the level of fana. The first level is the level of knowledge. All the good things that happen to you when you have the pure knowledge, the right knowledge. And certainly you act on it, and once you have acted on it, you would be moving to the second level, which is the level of hal, your inner state. That is basically your inner state being one of righteousness, being one of devotion, and your exterior will match your interior, or your interior will match your exterior, and that's the second level, the level of hal. And the third level is when you recognize the reality of this world and the reality of everything, and you understand how transient and insignificant it is in comparison to the maker, the creator, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So your will vanishes into his will, you completely conforms into his will, or to his will, and then your shuhud also, your witnessing, you'll not be distracted by a siwa, by anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you'll be very focused on your pursuit of Him Azza wa Jalla. And these are the 3 levels usually. So he will follow the same scheme here. But the first one he talked about zawq, and zawq also is part of, when we talked about epistemology, it's part of the epistemology. The believer will need the proper knowledge, but also in order for you to have the proper taste, to recognize the subtleties and the intricacies of this knowledge, and the proper guidance, the heart being guided, and have the proper taste, so that you have the proper understanding of the information that you collect or the information that you gather. That's also part of the epistemology that we've discussed before. And we said it's sort of like a moderate one between the extreme of relying too much on taste and ilham and inspiration and so on, and between completely dismissing these concepts, the guidance of the heart and the tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he says, الدرجة الأولى سرور ذوق ذهب بثلاثة أحزاب. The first level is the bliss of taste or of faith, taste of faith, which removes three types of grief. First, حزن أورثه خوف الانقطاع. The first type of grief, that which is brought about by the fear of desertion. The fear of desertion, or to fear being cut off from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to fear falling behind and behind the caravan of the seekers, the caravan of the travelers, the caravan of the wayfarers. You are in the company of the wayfarers, and then you're always afraid that they will that you will be cut off from them and cut off from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, falling behind the caravan of the righteous wayfarers, travelers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that huzn that is always in sort of the back of your mind, the fear that you will be cut off, the fear that you will fall behind. This surur, or this bliss of taste, whenever you experience that bliss of taste, the taste of faith, it will remove that huzn. It will remove that huzn. It comes back, but then it gets removed, and it comes back, and then it will be removed by this bliss of the taste of faith. And then the second type of grief that gets removed also by this type of bliss or this type of surur is وحزن. First we said حزن أورثه خوف الانقطاع وحزن هاجته ظلمة الجهل. That which is stirred by the darkness of ignorance. وحزن أغشته وحشة التفرق, and that which is covered by the lonesomeness of dispersion. وحزن هاجته ظلمة الجهل, that which is stirred by the darkness of ignorance. And ignorance here is not limited to ignorance in the sense of lack of information, but also ignorance in the sense of lack of understanding and lack of compliance. Because you're ignorant until you have learned and then understood properly and acted upon your proper understanding. And once you have acted upon your proper understanding of the information that you've collected, then you may have cured yourself from ignorance, partially in this particular respect, or in this particular topic, or this particular matter, and so on. But these are basically the three steps: so having the information, having the proper understanding of the information, and acting upon it with devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, acting upon it with devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's the cure of ignorance. And then the third is that which is covered, the huzn, this grief that is covered by the lonesomeness of dispersion. And dispersion, as we said before, is tafarruq, distraction. You're only together, your soul, your heart, your body, your mind, and your soul will be together. You will be one whole. You will not be fragmented, and your soul will not live in diaspora. Only if you are together with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He is the source of that wholeness and wholesomeness and holiness. He is the source. If you seek that wholeness, that togetherness away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will always have this dispersion, fragmentation of your soul. You'll always have this naked between your body, your mind, and your soul. They will be at odds. Your carnal desires, your sort of spiritual pursuits, and your intellect, they'll be at odds, they'll be fighting, they'll be in conflict. And people who are not consistent, really, who are not whose life does not revolve around the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the pursuit of Allah. It's a godless life. And we live in godless sort of times anyway. They call them anthropocentric times. Anthropocentric from anthropic, anthropo meaning referring to human beings. Anthropocentric meaning putting man in the center, removing God from the center and putting man in the center. So it is not God-centric, it is anthropocentric. And for each one of us, it's egocentric, and that egocentric life will be a fragmented life, because you will have conflict between the very elements that you are made of, because you are not made of one element, you are made of different elements. You will have conflicts, internal conflict, that will cause you this diaspora, that will cause you this unrest, and you will never be comfortable and you will never have rest until you make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the center. And then everything, it's like you're making tawaf all the time. So, envision the tawaf around the Kaaba, the center, the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being at the center, the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being at the center. And you never sort of wander away. You're always making tawaf. You never go away. You're moving in this life, but that movement is around the center. You're never going farther away from the center, even though you may have, like we said before, different occupations and volitions. But during your different occupations and volitions, you are circumambulating around that center. The center of your life is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are at different points, but those different points are never farther away from the center. They're all at the same distance from the center. So when you are at work, you are at the same distance from the center, like when you are in your hadra or your sort of togetherness with Allah. When you are attending to your family, it's because the pleasure of Allah is at the center and you're just moving around, being mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time. Okay, so that is how you remove the lonesomeness of dispersion and fragmentation and diaspora of the soul, and you keep your togetherness and you keep your wholeness and holism. Okay. So moving on to the second level here, the Shaykh talks here about surur al-shuhud. والدرجة الثانية surur al-shuhud. The second level is the bliss of shuhud, which he says surur shuhudi kashfi hijab al-ilm. It is the bliss of shuhud, and shuhud here is not basically witnessing the tajalli or the appearance of the attributes of Allah or the manifestations of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is for the next level. At this level, it is the shuhud of the bounties and the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The shuhud of the actions, not the attributes. And certainly not the that or the ipseity, the essence or the ipseity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the shuhud here is the shuhud of the actions of Allah, the favors of Allah. And this, you're witnessing or beholding of the actions and the favors of Allah will remove the veil of knowledge. The veil of knowledge is basically knowledge of technicality that is not accompanied by a good hal. The ilm, the superb ilm of technicalities that is not accompanied by a good hal could be a hindrance, obstacle, a veil between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the more knowledgeable you become, the thicker your veil becomes. Because that is knowledge that is not accompanied by a good hal. And didn't the Prophet ﷺ said the most thing I fear for you the most is the scholars of evil or the evil scholars. So you could amass a lot of knowledge, and the more knowledge that you amass and gather, the greater your veil grows between you and him. Because your uquba, your punishment for not basically using this knowledge, for not seeking this knowledge for the right cause, and not using this knowledge for the right cause, is to make this very knowledge that would have been your means to proximity, closeness, nearness to Him, a means of detachment from Him, and a means of, or a hindrance between you and Him, because al-jaza' min jins al-amal, right? So the compensation would be commensurate with the action, or be of the same jins, or the same kind of or type of the action. So this knowledge that would have been otherwise your means to proximity, because you did not seek it for the right cause and you have not used it for the right cause, becomes a hindrance, an obstacle. So when you have a shuhud, when you really have, behold the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and your shuhud is healthy and clear of the flaws of egocentrism and all of these flaws, then that veil will be removed, and your knowledge will be your means to qurb to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he says, kashfu hijab al-ilm removes the veil of knowledge. That bliss of shuhud removes the veil of knowledge. وَفَكُّ رِقِّ التَّكْلِيف, and it breaks the shackles of the burdens of injunctions. We said taklif is the burdens of injunctions, the do's and the don'ts, commands and the prohibitions. They come with a certain degree of burden. But as long as you feel the burden, you have not basically risen to this level that the Shaykh wants you to rise to, because once you have risen to this level, you will feel the takalif to be a carrier, not a burden. They carry you, you don't carry them. You don't carry the takalif, they carry you. They are not a burden, they are a source of joy and energy. The salah becomes your source of comfort and energy. It does not become an extra chore that you have to perform. An interruption of your schedule. Your schedule will revolve around the salah, and you will be waiting for the salah, basically for that extra boost of energy that you get from your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your salah. So here, fakk al-taklif does not mean at all that you abandon the takalif, that you desert the takalif or the injunctions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It means that they will not become burdens anymore. They'll carry you, you don't carry them. And then he said, وَنَفْيُ صَغَارِ الْاخْتِيَارِ, and ends the lowliness of entertaining choices. وَنَفْيُ صَغَارِ الْاخْتِيَارِ, nafi, it means ends or terminates. Sagar, the lowliness. Al-ikhtiyar, choices, meaning the lowliness of entertaining choices. Because as long as you're entertaining choices, you're basically so far away from the proper hal or the proper inner state or spiritual state that you should be in. Because وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا أَن يَكُونَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ. It is not befitting for a believing man or a woman when Allah and His Messenger decide a matter that they have a choice anymore about their affairs. So as long as you think that you have choices, and as long as you entertain choices, as long as you think about the choices, your hal is corrupted. Because when you have a pure hal, you don't have choices. Whatever brings you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever is more pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is your automatic choice. It is even effortless. As the Prophet ﷺ said, لَا يُؤْمِنُ أَحَدُكُمْ حَتَّى يَكُونَ هَوَاهُ تَبَعًا لِمَا جِئْتُ بِهِ. None of you will have faith until their desire, their internal inclination is in accordance with that which I have brought forth. You are internally inclined to that which the Prophet ﷺ commanded. You find comfort, you find ease, in that which he commanded, which does not mean that you don't feel tired when you're praying Qiyam al-Layl in Ramadan, particularly if you pray here, the 20 rakahs. So it does not mean that you're not going to feel tired. It just means that eventually the joy that you experience, the happiness that you experience in Qiyam al-Layl will far outweigh this. It will become a natural choice to pray, whether here or at home or anywhere. It's just like, it becomes a natural choice. It is not something that you fight for. If you're not there yet, then you would be struggling to get there, because this could take a very long time, and as long as you're struggling, you're on the right path. So if you're not having so some of the righteous predecessors said that I struggled with the night prayers for 20 years and then I enjoyed them for 20 years. Well, in order for him to enjoy the night prayers for 20 years, he had to struggle with them for 20 years. So he had to feel the burden for 20 years to get to the point where it is not a burden anymore. It becomes what we were talking about here. Because it carries you, you don't carry it. It gives you energy, it does not take energy from you. And then the Shaykh said, وَالدَّرَجَةُ الثَّالِثَةِ سرور سماع الإجابة وهو سرور يمحو آثار الوحش ويقرع باب المشاهدة ويضحك الروح. The third level is the bliss of hearing by the receptive, سماع الإجابة. Not any hearing. There is a lot of hearing, but the hearing of those who are receptive. It's receptive hearing, responsive, receptive. So the hearing of those who say سمعنا وأطعنا, not any hearing, because everybody hears, but hears the voices. Not everybody hears the speech, but everybody hears the voices. So by the hearing is سماع الإجابة, it's this special type of hearing, the receptive one, which يمحو آثار الوحشة, eliminates the effects of lonesomeness. If it eliminates the effects of lonesomeness. وَيَقْرَعُ بَابَ الْمُشَاهَدَةِ, knocks on the gate of mushahada. Mushahada here is different from the shuhud in the previous level. The mushahada here is where you're beholding of the tajalli of the asma and sifat, the appearance, the manifestation of the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your togetherness with Him, in your presence with Him. The previous one, you're beholding His actions and His favors. This one, you're beholding His names and attributes. It's a higher level. We said that beholding the that, the ipsity, the ultimate reality, you could behold the that to some extent with the eyes of your heart. You never behold the that with the eyes of your head. It is a different type of beholding in this dunya. No one, as we said before, the Prophet ﷺ, as Muslim reported, said, know that none of you will see their Lord in this dunya. None of you will see their Lord in this dunya. But this is beholding with the eyes of your heart. And then finally, the Shaykh said, وَيُضْحِكُ الرُّوحِ وَيُضْحِكَ الرُّوحِ. So سماع الإجابة سرور يمحو أثار الوحشة ويقرع باب المشاهدة ويضحك الروح. It eliminates the effects of lonesomeness. It knocks on the gate of mushahada and prompts the soul to laugh. Because after the mushahada, after you witness, after you behold the tajalli, the appearance, the manifestation of His names and attributes, and you become this close to Him, Azza wa Jal, then it is time for your soul to laugh. And this is basically like a sort of a tangible expression of ultimate joy and ultimate happiness, where your soul inside laughs. Laughs is an expression of happiness and joy, and that to some extent you can't even control. Like when you laugh, it's even uncontrollable. Like you don't make yourself laugh, you just laugh. So your soul inside will be laughing. It's uncontrollable joy and bliss when you have reached that level. And someone may say all of this joy and all of this bliss and all of this laughing and stuff, but does it, aren't we talking about strangerness when we talk about, people, in our times, we're talking about godless, sort of, the world has become godless, and there's not a particular sort of place versus another, or particular community or country, or generally speaking, walking away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And people have been complaining about this forever, but people always complain. But to a great extent, we do see this around us, and we do see basically the push for removing God from the center of our lives as communities, as societies, and as individuals. So how could you maintain that upbeatness, that positivity, that happiness, joy, and bliss, despite all of this, despite this ghurba, this feeling of strangeness? And didn't the Prophet ﷺ say, "Bada al-Islamu ghariban wa ya'udu ghariban kama bada fatuba lil-ghuraba"? Hadn't the Prophet ﷺ said that Islam had started as something strange and it will go back to being strange? Fatuba lil-ghuraba, blessed are the strangers. And if you are a stranger, how could you be happy if you are a stranger? Strangers are usually unhappy and anxious. No, because the Prophet said, Fatuba lil-ghuraba, blessed are the strangers. And this tuba is not limited to the akhirah. It is also in this dunya. It is also in this dunya. فَلَنُحْيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبًا. We will give them a good life. مَنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا مِنْ ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنْثَىٰ وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ. Whoever does righteousness, whether male or female, while in a state of belief, فَلَنُحْيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبًا. We will give them a good life. So that blessing is in this life. And in fact, Imam Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala has something to say to us, people who don't live, who don't necessarily, who live as minorities in non-Muslim lands. He said, وكذلك يوجد المسلمون المتمسكون بدينهم في بلاد الكفر لهم السعادة كلما كانوا أتم تمسكا بالإسلام. Likewise, you see that the Muslims that are adhering to their deen, to their religion in non-Muslim lands, or in the lands of unbelief, he said, or non-Muslim lands, we say, in non-Muslim lands, they will have complete happiness. لهم السعادة, happiness will be their lot, or they will have complete happiness كلما كانوا أتم تمسكا بالإسلام. The more they are adhering to Islam, they will be happier. The more adherent they are to Islam, the happier they are. فإذا دخل عليهم الشر فبذنوبهم. So when evil befalls them, it is because of their sins. When evil befalls them, it is only because of their sins, not because of the strangeness. It is because of their sins. And then he said, حتى إن أهل الكتاب والمشركين إذا رأوا المسلم القائم بالإسلام, even the people of the book and the polytheists, when they see the believer, when they see the Muslim who upholds Islam, who is practicing Islam and who truly upholds Islam, كرموه وعظموه وأعفوه من الأعمال التي يستعملون بها غيره من المسلمين المتمسكين بالظاهر الإسلام دون العمل بحقيقته. So he says that when the people of the book and the polytheists and mushrikeen, they see the Muslim who truly upholds Islam, they will honor him, they will elevate him, they will honor him, and they'll exempt him from the a'mal or the deeds that they assign to, he's talking about his time for sure, and that they assign to those who profess Islam without truly adhering to its essence. Those who profess Islam without truly adhering to its essence. And the bottom line here is it is not your strangeness that will cause you grief. Your strangeness will cause you bliss and it will cause you happiness. The fact that strangeness and depression and negativity are not mutually inclusive. Absolutely. In fact, strangeness and happiness and joy and bliss should be at least synergistic or symbiotic. And they bring about one another and they boost one another. So if you, and not only that this will be recognized by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you will be rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's saying even the people, the non-Muslims, the people of the book and the mushrikeen will recognize somebody who's truly adhering to the essence of Islam versus somebody who's just professing Islam externally or exteriorly without interiorly being adherent to the essence of the religion. So let us basically separate between the two concepts. Strangeness does not mean negativity or depression. You could feel the strangeness and you ought to feel it. You could and ought to feel the strangeness, but that is a concept that is different from depression, different from negativity, and should not even produce them or cause them. قولوا قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. We'll come back in 7 minutes for the fiqh of inheritance.